Kevin asks, do you have any advice about cutting through the noise to achieve a bird's eye view of the blockchain technology space as a whole? I spend every minute of my free time learning about new projects, new technologies, protocol improvements, consensus mechanisms, and I can barely keep up with a fraction of it all. As someone who spends much more time learning in this space than I do, how do you filter through it all? Do you recommend any sources in particular that do a great job at distilling the highlights of what's going on right now? Kevin, that's a great question. And I know that for many people, I serve as that source. It's very difficult not only to keep up with the extremely rapid pace of change in our industry and our space, but also to discern what is real and what is not. And, it's not simply a matter of the truth falling somewhere on a random curve or the news sources being randomly distributed. There are people out there who are actively trying to sell you something, and there's a lot of money floating around in this space, which has attracted a lot of unscrupulous people. So it's not just about keeping up, it's also about getting sources of information that are neutral, that don't have an agenda, or if they do have an agenda, it's an agenda based on some kind of principle, and not an agenda simply based on personal enrichment and promotion, right? So this is a big problem. There aren't that many neutral voices. Most people are trying to sell you something. And of course, there's a lot of companies that have now joined, both companies within our space, like startups, but also companies from outside the space, traditional industries like financial companies, insurance companies, banks, etc. And they're all trying to push their own agenda. They're all trying to tell you, for example, that we can continue to do business as usual with blockchain, and we don't really need any of this open, borderless, decentralized cryptocurrency shit. We can just do databases, and that's just as good. All we need to do is give complete power to the banks. So there's all of these challenges. To me, the best approach for cutting through the noise is to go directly to the technology and to go to the source information. So I look at code, and I use the code and try to understand what it does. In addition to that, I read the developer mailing lists. I read the discussions on GitHub. I read the pull requests. I read various chat rooms, and not all of them are good anymore. A lot of the very qualified developers have left many of the public chat rooms because of all of the noise that's happening there. And in order to get work done, they've gone to more private forums. But you can still find a lot of good information online. So to me, the focus is always on the technology. If you go back to the technology and read about what the developers are doing, and also read what the code is doing, then you can get a direct perspective of what's actually happening in the space, rather than the marketing brochure or the agenda-driven series of talking points. Everdread asks about crypto book recommendations. Hi Andreas, in a recent interview you spoke about your passion for reading. I've already read and loved your book, so what else do you recommend in the crypto, decentralization, and tech space? Any sci-fi books about a distant crypto future? Thanks, Everdread. Probably one of the most influential authors that I've read almost everything they've ever published, if not everything they've ever published, that has influenced my thinking a lot, is a cyberpunk author called Cory Doctorow. Cory Doctorow has written a number of amazing books. I'm a huge fan. And his latest book, Radicalized, just came out. I haven't started reading it yet, but I've loved every single one of his previous books, and they speak to this decentralized, autonomous, software-based, community-oriented, open-source future. Cory Doctorow is very strong in the areas of intellectual property and Creative Commons, for example, in defending general-purpose computing and open computing, and in fighting back against various forms of centralization and control. So if you like all of those ideas, that might be a good place to start. I certainly would recommend it.